Welcome, fellow Disney Channel babes, whether you're from the nostalgic 90s
or the awkward aughts,
or you're giving Gen Z. We're glad that you're here.
I'm Gabriella.
And I'm Natalie, and this is the podcast where we rave
and sometimes roast
classic Disney Channel original movies.
You're listening to Once Upon a DCOM. Hey everyone, welcome back to Once Upon a DCOM, where we take you down memory lane and dip into our nostalgia about some of our favorite Disney Channel original movies from the ages. I'm here with my friend Natalie.
Hello, everyone. Oh, I'm so good.
And we're really excited because today we're talking about an iconic movie, one of my favorites. We're going to be talking about Cadet Kelly. So Cadet Kelly came out in March of 2002 and was actually the second DCOM to air on ABC. It stars Hilary Duff, who we love as Kelly.
We love.
This is also our second movie starring Hilary Duff because we've already done the Lizzie McGuire movie. It also stars Christy Carlson Romano, who was best known at the time for her role as Wren in the Even Stevens show. And something I just learned today was that she was Kim in Kim Possible. Did you know that?
Yes, of course. Did you just learn that?
I had no idea until today.
Yeah. She even sings the theme song.
I'm your basic
average girl, and I'm here to save the world. Yep.
Like now I can totally hear it, but at the time I just never considered that. Yeah. So anyways, Christy Carlson Romano is in this film. And also fun fact, Gary Cole, who plays Kelly's stepfather, Sir, in this movie, acted alongside Romano in Kim Possible, voicing her father, Timothy Possible. Did you know that?
That I did not know. That's so fun.
Right? I was so excited. Yeah, so they had worked together before. So, some fun facts for you, Natalie, that I thought were cool. Would you like to hear my fun facts?
Oh, I sure do. Hit me with it.
All right. So, in this movie, Kelly is only meant to be 13, and Jennifer and Brad are both 16. But in real life, Hilary was 15, Christy was 18, and Sean was a whopping 23 years old in this film.
Oh my gosh.
He was an old gentleman.
He does not look like that. He has
I don't think so either.
Honestly, still, that actor has a baby face.
I mean, hot take, I didn't think he was that cute in this movie, but we'll get to that.
It's the buzz cut.
Probably, yes. Which actually, he had to attend military school for 3 months and take voice lessons to be able to project as a cadet major.
3 months?
Yeah, just to learn how to speak like that.
Oh my gosh. That's commitment.
Yeah. And then final fun fact is that the rifles they used throughout the movie were plastic to make choreography easier on the actors. In real life, they would have been real rifles.
Yeah, and hitting themselves in the face and, bloody noses and all that. I get it.
Right. Yeah, so they were just plastic. Would you like to take it away telling us what happens in this movie?
Sure. Buckle up, everyone, because a lot happens in this movie. So Kelly Collins is this bubbly, artistic teenager with divorced parents. Her mother announces that she is remarrying this guy who is a brigadier general, and he is becoming the leader of a military school. And surprise, she and her mother are moving to live on campus, and Kelly is going to attend said military school. On her very first day, it is immediately clear that her personality and the structure and the regulation of military school just do not mesh. She's perhaps not the best person to be in this situation, but she befriends Carla, who does her best to help her adjust, and despite that help, Kelly continues to struggle with her commanding officer, Captain Jennifer Stone. Jennifer's tough, and she instantly brands Kelly as a, quote, maggot, a real trouble child, just instant animosity between these two. So Kelly's first few days at the academy are a struggle, physical training, the rules, the terminology, etc., etc. And when she fails the obstacle course, Jennifer even makes her do it all over again. And after finishing the course covered in mud, Kelly heads to a dance that's on campus, but accidentally stumbles and ruins Jennifer's dress at the dance. Jennifer flips out. So all of these antics of Kelly's kind of cause a strain between her and her stepfather. And when she goes to complain to her mom about it, her mom reveals that she is pregnant. Kelly decides to push aside her own desires and do her best at school so that she doesn't create any more stress on her, and to try and help her stepfather become, ready to be a father, because she thinks he's a little too uptight. When she goes for a hug, he goes for a handshake. He's not really the touchy-feely type. And then back at the academy, Jennifer continues to bully Kelly, because let's call it what it is. She's bullying her, and making her life, even more difficult. So to get some payback, she plays a prank and paints Jennifer's hair in the middle of the night. Like, not like dyes her hair, like paints her hair with paint. And as punishment, her stepfather sentences her to take over the equipment manager position at the drill team, which she is not a fan of. But eventually, Kelly decides to try out for the drill team herself, and ultimately that's what brings her this sense of purpose and belonging in the academy. Her hard work starts to pay off, earning her the respect of her peers, and kind of even softening Jennifer's general attitude towards her. So we get to the next part. Kelly's dad, who has been overseas, surprises Kelly by saying that he is going to be working a job nearby and he can come watch her at the regionals competition. Yay! When the day of the competition comes, however, he doesn't show, and Kelly starts to get really worried because that's not like him. Her stepfather steps up. The two of them go in search of him, finding him on the other side of a cliff that he fell down. Gasp, drama. Anyway, Kelly and her stepfather rescue him. Everyone's okay. And when her stepfather hugs her instead of saluting her, Kelly knows instantly he's ready to be a dad. So Kelly runs back to the competition, and she and Jennifer perform a final routine that, if you're asking me, is a little cringy, but apparently is really good, and
it was
they get good marks. Iconic it was. Good, perhaps not. The Academy
it was
places
unique, and that's what made them stand out, and the judges saw that as positive.
That's fair. It was cringy. Perhaps the video editing, I don't know.
I was going to say, I think the editing made it not just cringy, but like somewhat of a risk because to watch.
It kind of hurt to struggle. My head was a little whiplashed. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the Academy places second in the competition, and Jennifer, it seems like she's going to yell at everybody, but instead she tells Kelly they never would have made it that far if Kelly hadn't have joined the team, and they end as unlikely friends. And that is Cadet Kelly, a whole lot more plot than I remember it having.
Yeah, there's so much going on in this movie between Kelly, like, it's kind of her coming of age story, right? Because it's about her growing up and adapting. But then there's also like all these family dynamics. And the older you get, the more they're just glaring, like between like co-parenting, when you're separated, and the military in general, and the statements it makes on society and on America. And yeah, there's just a lot to digest.
Yeah, so much family dynamic stuff is in here. And I really loved that. And again, it wasn't something I noticed as a kid, but like the fact that her parents are divorced, but amicably, she like goes out of her way to say that they're like amicably divorced. And she's even like really chill about her stepfather being married. Like, you kind of expect like that might be a plot point. Her mother and stepfather are getting married. She might be upset about that, but she like instantly accepts it and instantly is on board. But
yeah, they kind of really pull away from a lot of those typical plot, like stereotypical plot points.
Yeah.
Of like her being an angsty teenager. She's not. She's a free spirit for sure. But they show that that's to her advantage more than not. And while she does have to learn how to be somewhat conformative to the military base, ultimately it's revealed that it's a really good thing that she does bring this unique creative spirit there. And that they, even Sir, her stepfather, does value her individuality and doesn't want to take that from her, and that they can learn from each other. So I really liked that they got rid of all of the like angsty teenager vibes and just made room for a really beautiful story of development and growth as a family.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk more about that whole like discipline versus creativity thing, because I feel like one of the questions the movie makes you ask is, can they exist together? Like, can they exist at the same time in one person? And I think so many people, let me disclose, first of all, I come from a military family. My dad was military pretty much my entire life, moved around a bunch, but I am obviously a person in the arts. So I am a very creative person. And while I never thought I would go into the military, I did always kind of have this like two sides of my brain. I'm very analytical and numbers and a rule follower, but I'm also a very creative person and very much like to decide what my own rules are, if that makes any sense. So this movie is the type that makes me question, like, at what point do the two meet and at what point are they unable to collaborate?
Right. I was going to ask you about that being a military kid, like your perspective on it, because I do not come from a military background whatsoever. My mom, especially, is very much a creative free spirit. And I grew up without a lot of rules, just generally. So I've always been more on the side of Kelly at the beginning of the movie that's like, this is dumb and unhelpful. But, it really challenged me, especially as an adult, to be like, by the end, there is a reality that some of that structure is actually really healthy for people and people can really come to
Mhm.
enjoy it. So I was going to ask you, as someone who grew up in it, like your perspective on that level of like rules and structure and this is how we do things and we follow commanding officers. Like that is just so not something I grew up
Yeah.
with.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah. What's your thoughts?
So I feel like I have always had a deep respect for the military, obviously.
Oh, I would
Um
like to point out, me too. I
no,
don't
no, no, yeah,
I don't not like
yes.
them. I just
I know
don't
you do.
understand it.
That's fair. I think you are the majority of the world. So I don't
Mhm.
think that is a incorrect opinion to have. I feel like it's a very foreign concept if you don't know someone in the military, right? But yeah, my deep respect for the military, and they point this out in the movie. I feel like the military is excellent at creating really, really strong bonds between people. So friendships or like coworkerships that turn into family, which is so important when you are in an extreme situation like war, or in this case, I guess, stressful competitions. It's so important that you can rely on everyone on your team. And you can only really do that when you've gone through really hard things together. And so that's
Mm.
why they do those crazy obstacle courses. It's why they have such harsh rules in the early mornings. It's kind of, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's kind of trauma bonding almost. Like we all
Mhm.
went through this really hard stuff together and we came out stronger together. So I know that wherever we go from here, we can do it together. I feel like that's kind of the whole point of military training, anyway, is to really create strong people who know they can get through anything and know that the person next to them also had to go through the same hard stuff. So you can trust that they can have your back.
Mm.
These rules and these like really hard things, they all add up to create really strong people, but really strong units as well. And I think that's
Mm.
half of this movie is Kelly is wild and free and lovely and I love her, but she's not a strong person at the start, right? It's kind of like
Right.
a tree without roots where someone pushes too hard, she kind of like, "Oh, whoops, I fell over." But once she really gets some grit to her, once she learns that things can be hard and she can overcome them, she becomes somebody who we actually respect. Somebody who we're like,
Right.
yeah, she can have my back.
Yeah. And you're right, because there's that expression people say all the time about like we were in the trenches together. That comes from
Hmm.
this idea of being in war together and going through trauma together and coming out on the other side okay, or at least stronger, understanding one another. And I think it's a really cool statement too on family, because there's this reality. And I know you and I like both got married within the last 2 years. So there's this reality of family and marriage where it's two individuals coming
Hmm.
together to create a team. And that's kind of like how the military is as well. It's all of these individual personalities that have to kind of sacrifice and lay down their deal to be better as a team. But that doesn't mean you lose who you are in the process either. But you kind of grow into like in marriage, like you're kind of growing towards being somewhat of a singular person, right? And in the military, I feel like you're all growing into the singular unit that has a goal to accomplish together. And that's better done when you can lay down your individuality occasionally and then
Yes.
also
And
find opportunities to embrace it.
yes, yes. And I also think this movie is about Kelly, right? But it's also about Jennifer. And she has to do the
Mm.
same thing, right? Like she is so cocky about how great she is. And she has to learn that she doesn't know everything, that she
Yeah,
also has to sacrifice herself for everybody to win this competition. She has to let go and say, Kelly actually does have some good ideas. So I'm going to collaborate with her. She has to say, it's not about the individual, it's about the group.
absolutely. So at this point, I want to know like what are your thoughts on it then versus now? Does it hold up? Just did you enjoy watching it as an adult?
Yeah. So as a kid, I watched this movie all the time. That being
It was
said,
on a lot.
it was on a lot. That being said, I did not remember like any of this movie. I was watching it in the first probably 45 minutes, no recollection of any of it. So maybe it was like always on and I always came through in the middle. I have no idea. But I
Oh,
remember
wow.
liking it as a kid. And as an adult now, I thought it was really, really good. Again, I
Yeah.
love that it was a complicated plot and that it wasn't the plot you thought it was going to be. Like, there were a lot of elements where you're like, oh, they could have done this. Oh, they could have done this. But they picked the unusual version of that every time. And so I was
Yes.
actually thought it was a super creative movie and I greatly enjoyed it. What about
I
you?
did too. No, I totally agree with you. So as a kid, I really liked it because it was fun and it was Hilary Duff. And so obviously that was, a big part of it. And I didn't get most of what was going on as a kid. I just enjoyed the characters and the idea of her doing this competition and dancing. But as an adult, there was so much more of it I understood, especially, yeah, like the whole divorced parents concept. And, I love how Kelly comes from this total, a free spirit school that's just like, we don't have to do math if we don't want to. Like, one, does that even exist? Everybody has to learn math.
I
um,
have to stop you for a second. My husband, who is a sports guy, not an arts kid, turned to me and goes, "Was that what theater school was actually like?" And I was like, "No,
no, you
no, that
have to
wasn't what
still
theater
learn
school was
things.
like."
But I love the extremism to get you to understand. Like, because
Mhm.
the other thing is, right, they portray it as this is Kelly's memoir. Like, the whole time she's
Right.
recording until she actually gets to the base. The whole beginning, she's recording. And so it's really through her eyes. Even the last line in the movie is her saying, like, I might have forgotten what everyone was wearing. And so we have to imagine this is through the eyes of what's supposed to be a 13-year-old girl who's being asked to leave everything she knows and love and leave her life behind. So, of course, a 13-year-old girl who moves to this military school would be like, I didn't have to do math if I didn't want to. Like, that was her perspective on the school she was at once she was forced to leave. And she was only seeing everything with rose-colored glasses from her past. And so I think that's actually a really creative choice on the writer's part to make it so extreme. Like this, they don't even have to sit down if they don't want to school. And this, like, we will literally rip up your childhood blanket if I see it again school. And that's just because that's how Kelly is perceiving the change in her life, is this like very dramatic, extreme thing. And it's funny as an adult to be like, that's not how things really are. But like, that's how they
Right.
really are when you're in it and you're 13 and everything is, blowing up in your face.
Yeah, you make an excellent point. Yes. Because
Thank
I
you.
did
Yeah.
sit there when she was ripping up the blanket and go, that would never actually happen. But it's in Kelly's perspective. And maybe Kelly thinks these horrible things happen. She's being dramatic, you know?
Yeah, like when you're being bullied, it's gonna and that doesn't invalidate what she's experiencing at all.
Right.
She is
Right.
having a very traumatic experience for sure, but I highly doubt it's quite as bad as she's remembering it to be in this
Mm-hmm.
memoir story.
Yeah.
But even the concept of Brad, right? Realistically, a 16-year-old boy, 23, but like 16-year-old boy is not going to fall for 13-year-old girl. And they really didn't portray that. Like, they didn't get
Mm-hmm.
together. They didn't kiss. He's just like, "Aw, she's adorable." And I think in her mind, she's like, he has a crush on me. But in reality, he does not. He's just like, "You're so cute. Let me help you
Yes.
out." He also
Yes.
doesn't like
Gabby, you hit
Jennifer.
the nail on the head. Yes.
But like, she's seeing it as like, "Oh, we had a thing." But like, no, you didn't. But that's
No, you
okay because
didn't.
it's fun. Yeah.
Yes. You were so right.
I mean, he did, I think, ask Jennifer to the dance, right? Because they're dancing
He must
together
have.
when
Or
Kelly
at least
interrupts
asked
them.
her to dance, right? Unless Jennifer went
Something,
over there and was like, we're dancing now.
which I
Come to
would
the
believe.
floor.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure.
That's a great
But
point.
yeah, I really loved it as an adult. I thought it was really fun to watch. I didn't feel like it was cringy like some other movies are. There was really very few cringe moments for me.
Except the dance at the end.
The editing was like, oh my gosh, if you
Painful.
have epilepsy,
Painful.
don't watch it. It was so fast and unnecessarily so. Like,
Yes. But
I
other than
did
that,
like
I
the
agree
use
with
of
you.
ribbons. Yeah, I
Oh my
did like the
gosh,
use
the
of ribbons.
ribbons.
You know what else I love that I didn't appreciate as a kid? What was her name? Was it Gloria? The one that gets put in charge of the obstacle course when it's like
Yes.
raining and cold.
Yes, Gloria.
I loved her.
Yes. And her style of leadership over Jennifer's is so
Uh-huh.
poignant, right? Like I
Yep.
like when she's under, like, army crawling in the mud under the barbed wire with her. She says, "This is how you do it." You know, she's leading by example and leading with kindness. That's something Jennifer
Yeah.
would never do.
Yeah, and giving Kelly opportunities to make it her own by like sharing her own story about how she's thinking she's on a beach in her home country looking at the stars. And it's like giving Kelly that freedom to be like, you can embrace those parts of yourself. Like being an individual is what's going to make being a team easier, is kind of what
Yes.
she's saying.
She was by far my favorite character, by far.
Yeah, I really, really love her. I actually appreciated Sir more in this version of the movie because you could very easily understand him being like an evil stepfather character where it's like, I love this woman and this girl is ruining everything. And I would just personally like to start fresh, right?
Mhm.
And instead, he is very much working to embrace this family and love them well. And yeah, he's got stuff to learn, but I really appreciated just like the softness that he brought to the character of a military leader, because normally you'd
Yes.
think they're pretty abrasive, but he was not. He was actually like quite gentle with them. And I liked
Right.
that.
And Kelly, but also everyone else. Like,
Yeah.
when they don't win the gold at the spoiler alert. I'm assuming you all watched it. And when they don't win the gold at the end, he's not like supremely disappointed. He's not yelling at them, you know. He's like, "I'm so
Right.
proud because we've never gotten this far before."
So, on this note of talking about Sir, I have a question for you. Watching it as an adult, I was, how do I put it? The math ain't mathing. Was her mom pregnant when they got married? I think she might
Okay,
have been.
listen. Okay, listen. I don't know the timeline of when they announced, "Hey, we're getting married," and when they moved, and then when she got pregnant. Because, like,
It's
I
hard
think
to
when they
figure
moved
out.
and when she got pregnant, that's gotta be within a few weeks, right? But, like, when, you know? So, the answer is probably, but I don't know. I can't tell.
Yeah, cause it skips really fast at the beginning
Oh,
across
sure
and I
does.
didn't get this as a kid either. I thought it was all, like, the course of a week, but it actually at the beginning was like, okay, they announce that they're getting married, and then it's like the next day is the wedding, so that had to be a pretty significant amount of time.
I guess? Or, like,
Cause she
maybe
has
they
a
were
whole
planning it behind her
dress.
back. I have no idea.
That's true. But I feel like that would be a lot to be like, "We're getting married, and by the way, it's next week." I mean, maybe, possibly, but that didn't really seem like their personalities.
I don't know, man. Military weddings tend to happen fast. People are like, "I have to deploy in a month. We're getting married now." No shade. I love my military people.
So, like, and then they're at the base for a week, I think, before she, like, tells Kelly they're pregnant. Maybe a little bit longer, but anyways, I just didn't know your thoughts on if maybe she was pregnant when they got married.
Yeah, man. I was also confused. I was like, again, to quote you, the math ain't mathin'.
I was just like, I have some questions. Okay, so another thought I have, and I don't know how deep this is going to go, but I'm just going to bring it up and you can take it where you want to. I had a bit of a problem, not a big problem, but like a baby problem with the concept of I have to do everything being glamorized, because I feel like as a
Mhm.
kid, I loved the idea that like Kelly had all of this control and autonomy. And now, of course, it's from her perspective. So she's an unreliable narrator. I doubt she really had that much control or say. But as a kid, I was like, oh, yeah, I want to be able to like fix all the problems. And like, I'm not even like a people pleaser type personality, but I just loved this idea of like, oh, I can take care of all this stuff. I can have this level of control or like being an adult, you know? And I feel like Kelly has this overactive imagination about how adult she is, and it's very glamorized. And I don't know, I bet I had a bit of a problem with just that part.
Are you talking about how she, like, takes responsibility for, like, her mom's pregnancy and for, like, her stepdad becoming a father and, like, saving the drill team? You talking about, like, how she, like, picks up on
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah, well, and
I
she has this line that's repeated throughout the whole movie of like, I have to do everything. And then she actually does take on all this extra responsibility that makes this traumatic experience even harder for her. She doesn't have to do all that. Like, her mother has a supportive partner now. Her dad is, I mean, he's clumsy. And they established that right away, which I didn't pick up on as a kid, but he falls so much.
Mhm.
So I get a little bit her kind of having to take care of her dad, but like, not really. He's gone so much. And then at the end, she's like, I will rappel down and be with him. And I'm like, but the emergency people are going to be there in like 5 minutes. Why do you need to rappel down? I feel like she just puts more pressure on herself than she needs to. And me being someone who's like in therapy for putting too much pressure on myself is like, you don't have to do everything.
Yes, I was just going to bring therapy into it. I feel like there's so much in her life that she can't control that she tries to take control of everything else. I think it's a response to the stress. The information my mom is pregnant. That's kind of, when you're 13 years old and your mom remarried and now she's pregnant and you know what that means, like that
Mm-hmm.
can be kind of hard to grasp. And so she immediately goes, I have to take care of my mother. I'm going to take this on myself because this is the part I can think about versus the part I
Mm-hmm.
can't think about. Same thing like with her dad. I think that it's probably a response to the divorce and feeling like she didn't have any control in that situation, but at least she can take care of her dad. At least she can do, this and that and the other thing. I feel like
Wow.
it's a
Natalie hitting
response.
us with so much truth. She even does it with the fish. When her mom's like, you saved most of
Yeah.
the fish. She's like, I saved all of the fish. Like,
Yeah,
I
because it's
saved their
important
lives.
to her. I think it's also like she is so sensitive to her own mistakes because people have told her she's a screw up. And so when she
Hmm.
messes things up, she's like, well, I have to fix them so people don't think I'm a screw up.
I
Or
do
she
wonder though
says,
if that complex didn't develop until later on when she went to military school, because I don't think anyone was speaking that over her.
I would
It
say,
seems like a lot of people were accepting of who she was at the beginning.
yeah, but from the very first impression we get from her mother, really stressed, talking on the phone as a lawyer, and like making strong opinions. No, I need this. No, I need this. I think her mom probably puts some of that energy towards her daughter. And then
Mm,
also, my parents are not divorced. I am very lucky in that way. But I am saying a lot of kids from divorced families struggle with the thought, was it my fault? Did I do something wrong? Am I the
right.
reason this happened? No matter how much the parents tell them, it's not you, it's not you, it's not you. Every divorced parent child is going to think that. And so I think part of her, because she takes on so much stress and she takes everyone's lives into her hand, I think that part of that says, I screwed up this, so I have to fix everything else.
That's a really good observation. And I'm seeing even more of what you're saying too, and she channels it into being amazing at military school. Like even
Mm-hmm.
though she's totally overwhelmed and hates it, she's like, I'm going to be great at this because I can control this. I can
Yep.
control if I try. Which actually shows it can be put into a positive outlet in some areas, but ultimately I just really hope she gets the right kind of therapy.
Yeah. Here's the thing, because I know therapy wasn't as big as it is now in 2002 or whenever. I will say, I think that her finding this community in military school is a good substitute for that. She's going to find
Mm,
people who genuinely support her and actively want to see her succeed. And the nice thing about structure and rules is that you very clearly know when you mess up and you very clearly know when you don't. And when you mess
mm.
up, you know how to fix it. So I think that actually having structure is probably really good for her when she has this, potentially OCD personality, which I say with a grain of salt because I can't diagnose her. I am not a therapist. I'm just saying she's got, a compulsive need to be in control. And I think that really structured environments are probably going to be good for her.
Oh my gosh, this is turning into such a therapy session. For myself, as someone who is diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, a pretty intense, extreme version of it as well,
Mm-hmm.
I you're making me see even more how much I relate to Cadet Kelly and maybe why I
Yes.
had such a triggering reaction because I was like, oh, look, it's my life. Thankfully, I can also attest to my parents are not separated or divorced. So I'm very grateful for that. So, not in that way, but in many other ways, how she
Yeah.
responds to stimulus. I'm like, oh, look, it me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
This has gotten so much deeper than I intended. I'm glad I brought it up though.
Yeah. It's amazing. Let's stop for a moment and just appreciate how it's amazing that these silly little movies made over 20 years ago can still have such resonant themes and like bring people together like
Oh,
this. I think that's
100%.
incredible.
And that's the real reason we're doing this podcast. Like, yeah, it's fun.
Exactly.
And we all love rewatching Disney movies, but like there are real nuggets of truth and wisdom in some of these, especially the older ones. I feel like they just weren't shying away from like real problems. And it's good to talk about it.
It absolutely is. Do you want to know what the rest of the world thinks of this movie?
I'm very curious what people think.
I know. So,
especially the critics.
Well, prepare to be disappointed. There is no tomato meter for this movie. Not enough people reviewed it.
Again.
But the audience rating, does not redeem it. It is only 49%. Boo. People did not like this movie.
They're wrong. How is Xenon's higher?
Right?
I mean, I love Xenon, but like, what?
Especially after we just dug so deep on the themes of this movie.
I know. Everybody who listens to this podcast needs to go and add their review to up that score, please.
Yes. I will say everyone that left like extensively wordy reviews were positive. The negative ones were all like one sentence of this was horrible, this was cringy. So the people who
invalid
clearly
responses.
People who took the time to say something enjoyed it. Let me read a few for you if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
This one is from one of the critics. It says, "This movie taught us the unique challenges faced by women in authority positions. It taught us a wildly achievable dance routine, and it taught us military time. A salute to you, Cadet Kelly."
That's brilliant.
I know, that's
love
so cute,
puns. Right? I love it.
Wildly achievable dance routine. Gabby, do we need to learn the dance routine and put it on TikTok?
No, we don't.
I can't believe she just said yes to that. Did you hear that, listener?
This is not an improv class. I said no.
She is going to do it. I'm so excited for Gabby to learn this dance.
Okay, as someone who grew up learning dances from Disney Channel original movies, let me just tell you, it took me forever to learn the dances from Camp Rock, and those are just a straight shot. You can see all the moves easily. There is no crazy editing. Do you have any idea how hard it would be to learn this dance from the crap show that is The Edit?
I'm sure somebody online has done it. We can watch them. Next review. Cadet Kelly isn't a 21 gun salute material, but as glossy kids entertainment, it manages to put across a positive message and it hits its target.
I like the word glossy, like Hilary Duff's hair.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
This movie is kind of corny and cheesy, but it gives you the Disney Channel vibe that they are always going for. Again, this is not a movie that I would continually reach out to watch, but it's one of those movies when you just need something and have nothing. You could just throw it on and be okay and maybe fall asleep in the middle and wake up towards the end and still be fine.
Wow. Sounds like that's exactly what this guy did.
I cackled when I read that the very first time because I was like, homie, this is a relatively confusing plot. If you woke up at the end, you'd be like, how'd that guy fall over that cliff?
Right? Oh my gosh, he's so clumsy. Also, that review is so dated. The verbiage dates it because he said reach out to watch. And I'm just like, oh, before streaming, before Disney Plus.
Grabbing that VHS off the shelves. Maybe a DVD even.
Possibly. Were DVDs a thing in 2002? I can't remember.
I don't know when they came out. Listeners, please let us know.
Coming soon on Disney DVD.
And then it explodes with the and then you run to get the volume control because it's too loud. And then you turn it all the way down and the movie starts and you can't hear the first line of the movie because it's turned down too low.
Absolutely. That's the vibe. If anyone is concerned about the Tinkerbell Mandela effect, that's where you got it from. She adds the little thing on the DVD.
Think.
Do you know how people are upset about this? That they're like,
yes.
I distinctly remember her adding the top of the eye. It's in the DVD thing. That's where you remember it from.
There you go. There you go.
Because I did extensive research on this once because I was like, I remember it.
All right, Gabby, tell me where these actors are now.
Okay, this is fun. So we already did Hilary Duff back during the Lizzie McGuire movie, so we're not going to recap her again. But Romano, you know, who played Ren in Even Steven and was Jennifer in this, she continued to act for a while, but she and her husband relocated to Austin, Texas to raise their daughters. And they are most well known now for starting the company Podco, which, if you don't know, it describes itself as a dynamic podcast network focused on capturing gripping conversations between iconic personalities. AKA, they get old stars from our favorite shows, all full of nostalgia, and have them sit down and do a podcast about their time on the show. So they have given us shows like Wizards of Waverly Pop, which has all the Wizards of Waverly Place actors, or at least a lot of them, talking about their time making that show. There's like Ned's Declassified Podcast Survival Guide, Full House Rewind with Dave Coulier, like all shows that just have the cast members from the original series sitting down and talking about their time making the shows. It's so fun and so nostalgic, so y'all should check it out. But her and her husband started that company. So cool.
I love it. And before she had the podcast, I'm revealing that I actually know a lot about this actress. Before the podcast, she had a YouTube channel during the pandemic.
Oh, did she?
Yes, when she like told a lot of these stories about her time being in these movies. And also when she did this, I think it's called like Cooking with Christy or something like that. But she had all of her old friends come on and like do a cooking show with her while she interviewed them. It is delightful.
Oh, that
and
is
everyone
so
should go
fun.
look it up. It is so
I'm
much
gonna
fun.
go look it up. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna watch that while I make dinner. That's amazing.
Yes, you definitely should. It's very entertaining.
That's so much fun. Okay, well, I didn't even know about any of this. I thought they were just started like on their own, or like Disney or Nickelodeon was doing them. Because like Avatar: The Last Airbender has a podcast, Braving the Elements, and it's got all the old, people from the show on it. But that's actually being hosted by Nickelodeon. Like it's a Nickelodeon podcast. So I thought these were similar. I only learned today that she's the one who started this. And I think it's awesome. And then Shawn Ashmore, this is my only other one, because everyone else, like, they've all done other things, but nothing, like, crazy that I saw. Shawn Ashmore, who played Brad, has continued acting in several projects, but most notably, he played Bobby, or Iceman, in the popular X-Men films.
X-Men!
Which I also haven't seen, but need to.
What?
I know.
Okay, they're really
I'm
good.
getting on
see
it.
them.
I know.
You should
Nick
see
wants me to watch them so bad. Well, now that X-Men are coming into the MCU, I'm going to need to catch up.
Yes. That was Cadet Kelly. This is, again, one of those movies I watched a lot as a kid and didn't remember any of the actual plot elements. So I am so glad that we have this rewatch podcast so that we could actually dive in and see how awesome this movie really is.
It was such a joy to watch this movie, and I feel like that every week. Every week I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to watch the movie. I can't wait. And I always end up loving it. Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be a week that we hate it.
Right. There's not one that's like sucked yet,
I get the feeling when we get into the more modern ones, we're going to be like,
I know.
What were you doing, Disney?
I know. Maybe we'll get a modern one today. Speaking of which,
oh, yes.
Before we go, we have to randomly select which DCOM we're watching next. For those of you who don't know, our listeners, we are watching every single DCOM that has been made, of which there are like 117 or something like that. So let's randomly spin. Oh, I'm hearing the spinning noise in my headphones. And let's see what we get.
I'm so ready.
It stopped on the line.
No!
Okay, I'm going to spin again. Hold on.
All right.
Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. Smart House.
I'm so excited. Nick saw that on Disney Plus when we were pulling up Cadet Kelly, and he was like, "Are you doing Smart House? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited."
Yes, this was an obsession of mine as a child, so like, I'm pumped.
I'm not gonna lie, I remember almost none of it, but I do remember that I loved it. So this is going to be really fun to rewatch. I bet we're going to have lots of things to say about technology, more than Xenon.
I agree. All right, everybody, go watch Smart House. We will see you next week.
Yes, and when you're done watching Smart House, start preparing yourself. Get some candy corn and spooky decor, because coming up in October, we are going to be doing all Halloween-themed DCOMs throughout the entire month of October, so you guys can start getting excited for that in a couple of weeks.
Because as we all know, the best DCOMs are the Halloween-themed ones.
I would fight you to the death on that, but do you not remember High School Musical?
Okay, but listen, Twitches is amazing. Halloween Town High.
Let me ask you this. Does Descendants count as Halloween themed?
No.
Then I disagree with you.
Rude. All right, everybody. We love you. We will see you next week. Go watch Smart House.
All right, we'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of Once Upon a DCOM.
Like what you just heard? Leave us a rating and review. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at onceuponadcom.podcast and share this podcast with your Disney-loving friends.
A big thanks to Gabby for editing this whole podcast together.
Thanks, friend. And don't forget to subscribe because there's always a new episode on the way. This is Gabriella.
And Natalie.
Signing off with a sprinkle of pixie dust.
And a whole lot of nostalgia.